Hello, welcome to the Essential Vibration channel, a space to awaken, feel and expand your consciousness. There are moments when life seems to follow its normal course. Days go by, conversations repeat themselves, commitments pile up. Everything seems to be in the usual order of things. But behind this normality, there is something subtle, almost imperceptible, that insists on touching us. It is like a silent call, a breath that infiltrates our thoughts, bringing the feeling that there is something else trying to communicate with us. Perhaps you have already felt this, a gentle weight on your chest, a nameless restlessness, as if an answer were right in front of you, but you lack the right words to decipher it. It is at this point that many get lost, wondering if what they feel is intuition, coincidence, imagination, or just the mind trying to make sense of what it does not understand. Gregg Braden describes the universe as a unified field, an immense living web, where everything is connected and responds to our emotions and choices. We are not isolated nor abandoned to chance. We are inside an interactive organism, and every thought, every vibration, every internal state reverberates in this field like a signal sent out. Joe Dispenza reminds us that the brain does not perceive reality in a neutral way. It filters what we perceive through the lens of our past experiences, the pains, fears, and beliefs we carry. Often, the message arrives but is lost in the noise of doubt, insecurity, and lack of faith in ourselves. It's like a radio that's out of tune. The music may be playing, but all we hear is noise. To perceive the answers that the universe sends us, we need to tune our minds and hearts to the right frequency. When this tuning happens, the invisible is revealed, and what once seemed random gains clarity, coherence, and meaning. Then an inevitable question arises. What if what you call coincidence is actually a dialogue that has always been happening, but you never learned to hear? There are moments when certain symbols seem to repeat themselves in our lives. A number that insists on appearing, an image that manifests itself in different contexts, a word that crosses your path more than once. For many, all of this passes as a random curiosity, something that does not deserve attention. But the more we ignore it, the more it seems to return, as if life were trying to knock on our door in different ways. The danger lies in distraction. When we treat these signs as mere coincidences, they lose the transformative power they could have. Gregg Braden explains that recurring patterns are not the result of chance, but rather markers, reference points that indicate that we are touching a frequency of imminent change. They are reminders that something in our field is asking to be recognized. However, there is also a silent risk, interpreting any repetition as prophecy, as if each symbol were a definitive answer. This is where many people get confused, diving into illusions and distortions. The secret is not in collecting signs, but in observing the coherence between them, feeling if there is emotional alignment and real context. Just as a compass does not point in all directions, but only indicates north, symbolic repetitions do not carry all the answers. They are invitations, not guarantees. They are echoes that demand attention, but only find meaning when connected to our internal state. Imagine for a moment recording the symbols that appear around you for a few days. The simple act of observing with more presence already creates a natural filter. You begin to realize what is just mental noise and what actually resonates as an authentic call. In this process, life ceases to be just a sequence of disconnected facts and becomes an intimate dialogue, where every detail can be a reflection of what is happening inside you. There are moments when life seems to weave events together with a precision that is almost impossible to ignore. You think of someone, and moments later, that person appears. A book falls into your hands just when you were looking for an answer. An unexpected encounter changes the direction of your day. At first glance, it may all seem like coincidence, but there is something different happening when these experiences cross your consciousness. Coincidence is random. It arises, passes, and dissolves without leaving any deep traces. Synchronicity, on the other hand, reorganizes your perception. It affects your internal state. It is as if an invisible window opens for a brief moment, allowing you to see the hidden web that connects all things. Gregg Braden describes synchronicity as micro-portals. small openings where the human mind and the unified field resonate. It's not just about the event itself, but about the silent transformation it causes within you. Your heart races, your breathing changes, and suddenly you feel that you are facing something greater, something that escapes linear logic. But there is also a caution to be taken. When we seek synchronicities as proof, forcing their appearance, they lose their authenticity. True synchronicity does not need to be manufactured, because its strength lies precisely in its spontaneity. The more you try to manipulate this flow, the more it slips away like water through your fingers. The true mark of synchronicity is a change of state. You don't leave the moment the same as when you entered it. It's as if a seed has been planted inside you, making room for new understandings. Sometimes a single synchronicity is enough to break years of doubt and bring clarity to a question that seemed unsolvable. Deep down, every synchronicity is an invitation, a reminder that we do not walk alone, that there is a living, loving intelligence sustaining the invisible fabric of life. And every time we recognize this movement, we strengthen the bridge between what we see and what we do not yet understand. There is a silence that is not empty, but presence, a dense silence that enters as an invitation. It is not the absence of sound around us, it is the withdrawal of internal noise. The thoughts that spin, the anxiety that pushes, the doubts that cry out for certainty. Suddenly, something inside you slows down, and there is space. In that space, life does not need to speak with obvious images or signs. It whispers in sensations, in sudden clarity, in a peace that comes without warning. Silence weighs heavily because it carries meaning. Silence weighs heavily because it reveals. Gregg Braden talks about states of cardiac coherence as doors of perception. When the heart and mind find a more serene rhythm, the field responds with subtle signals that were not previously perceived. It is not spectacle, it is clarity, a feeling that something fits, a certainty that does not pass through reasoning. Joe Dispenza describes this as a download of information, not in words but in bodily understanding, in certainty that crosses the chest and transforms the way the world presents itself. Not all silence is a message. Many silences are just a passing pause. The difference lies in the quality of the inner state. There are silences that confuse and others that clarify. The true sign is noticeable by the abrupt change in internal rhythm. The mind quiets, the breathing calms, the restlessness disappears for no apparent reason. It is such a sharp contrast that you immediately realize that something has been said without sound. Some practices are reminders of this possibility. There are techniques called coherent breathing that, according to practitioners, help create 3 minutes of receptivity where silence becomes a channel. It is not a magical ritual, it is a frequency adjustment. By allowing the body and mind to come into harmony, you increase your sensitivity to pick up those messages that do not come through images, but through inner certainty. Think of a lake after a storm. When the wind dies down and the surface settles, the entire sky is reflected with precision. This is how silence that weighs more than words works. It calms the surface so that the reflection appears clear and whole. And when that image appears, there is no doubt that the universe has spoken. You just know. We often believe that the universe needs to speak to us in the way we imagine. We look for revealing dreams, magical phrases, repeated numbers. We create mental images of the right way to receive answers. And when they don't happen within that mold, we conclude that nothing has been said, that there is no message, that there is no movement. But the universe does not bow to our linear expectations. It communicates in frequency, not form. Gregg Braden reminds us that the intelligence of the unified field does not respond to Cartesian logic, but to the vibration we carry in our hearts. And if the answer does not come as we planned, it does not mean absence, but another way of expression. It's like waiting for a handwritten letter when the universe has already sent the message through a glance, a gesture, an unexpected silence. There was a person who sought signs only in dreams. However, the answer she had been waiting for came in a mundane moment. A stranger crossed her path and said an unassuming phrase that carried exactly the key she needed to hear. Her rigid expectation almost blinded her to the simplicity of the event. The invitation then is not to wait for the field to adapt to your form, but to learn to deformate the request. Let go of the rigidity of the mind and make room for the answer to come as it needs to come. Instead of clinging to the mode, wisdom lies in cultivating the inner state that resonates with the clarity you desire. Because the sign does not obey the control of the ego, it obeys the coherence of the heart. There is a subtle kind of impatience that erodes our perception of signs. It is vibrational haste, that eagerness that insists on decoding right now, at this very moment, what the universe may still be quietly preparing. This impulse alters the frequency and distorts clarity, as if anxiety itself generated noise and scrambled the communication channel. Gregg Braden reminds us that coherence is fragile under pressure. The unified field does not respond to the cry of urgency, but to the vibrational state we hold in our hearts. It is not the when that matters, it is the how. It is not speed, but attunement. The universe is not a hurried attendant who rushes to satisfy immediate requests. It responds to the deep vibration we emit, not to the time imposed by the ego. And here lies an essential key. When we change the question, when will the answer come, to how can I align myself to receive it, something changes within us. Our attention shifts from the calendar of the mind to the harmony of the present. The signal is clearer when it is not forced. The metaphor is simple and powerful. Imagine a lake. If you keep stirring the water with stones and sudden movements, the surface will never reflect the sky. Stillness is necessary for the reflection to show itself in its beauty. In the same way, life can only reflect answers when haste does not cloud the surface of the heart. Communication with the invisible is not a miracle reserved for the few, but a skill that we can all cultivate. Gregg Braden reminds us that the unified field is not distant or overly mystical, but a living fabric that responds directly to our consciousness. It is not driven by linear logic, but by the vibration we sustain, as if it were a dance between the mind, the heart, and the cosmos itself. Joe Dispenza reinforces this view by showing that every time we recognize and honor a sign, we strengthen internal connections that make us more sensitive to other signs. The brain, which previously filtered everything through the weight of past experiences, begins to make room for new readings, new perceptions. What once seemed like mere chance becomes dialogue, and this dialogue awakens us to a new way of living. True mastery is not in collecting signs, but in learning to adjust our internal state. It is being in constant dialogue with life, without the need for constant proof. It is realizing that the universe speaks in silences, in symbols, in subtle synchronicities, and that the key is not to decipher quickly, but to remain present. The final analogy is clear. Learning to listen to the universe is like learning a new language. It requires daily practice, patience, attention to detail, and above all, a willingness to listen more than to speak. When we do this, we discover that we have never been alone. There has always been a voice accompanying us, just waiting for us to learn to listen. If this message touched you, give it a like, comment, and follow the Essential Vibe. Your presence is part of this journey,